for those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Chris Morissette, and I'm the novice chairperson for the Houston Astronomical Society. And I think we really have a cool session tonight. We have Will Sager, along with Steve and Amelia Goldberg and Joe Califf, and they're going to be presenting Introduction to Telescopes and Getting the Right One from Santa. And if you read that title and you're anything like me, you're wondering, where did 2025 go? I heard a great analogy. They say as you get older, life is like a roll of toilet paper because it spins faster the farther you're into your life. Just probably not a good visual, but it's something that I just thought of. Anyway, so let's get down to business here. So Christmas is the time of year that many people think of buying a telescope, and either for themselves or for a loved one. And it's also the time of year that bad telescopes come out to tempt the neophyte with amazing claims of power and reach. In this presentation, Will, along with assistance from Steve, Amelia, and Joe, will cover basics of telescope types, their mounts, how they operate, and what they are good at. They'll show some actual real telescopes as examples and introduce the HAS Loaner Telescope program. In the spirit of the holidays, they'll also give some insights about what makes a good telescope present. And might also add that they'll be testing some technology here for presentation online. So that's going to be exciting and also could be some issues, but we'll just kind of work through those. So a little bit about our presenter, Will Sager. He is a professor of geophysics at U of H. Unfortunately, he lives close to the university. At the center of the Houston Light Dome, he received his first telescope, a 6-inch Criterion reflector, for Christmas at age 10, many, many years ago, and over the ensuing 6 decades has owned many telescopes. So before I turn it over to Will, let me just ask that you all put your questions in the chat, and we'll come back to those at the end of the presentation. Um, and uh, I'll, with that, I think I've said all I need to at this point. So with that, let me turn it over to Will, and Will, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, Chris, let me get everyone to come over so you can see everyone who's involved here. We're going to try to do a little bit of a telescope show and tell, and this would be a great thing to do for an in-person meeting, maybe next time around. Here's Amelia. Come on, Steve. And Joe. Hi, everybody. So we're going to try to show you some telescopes at some point here. Maybe it'll actually work. We'll see. All right, so I guess I go back to share, find my presentation, and away we go. Do you see the telescope primer slide? Chris?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right. So there are three basic telescope types: refractor, reflector, and catadioptric. The refractor, like you see on the left here, that's your basic yard cannon. It has an objective lens in the front, an eyepiece in the back. A reflector has a reflector mirror in the back end and uh, and an eyepiece at the top. I'm trying to find my laser pointer. There it goes. Okay, and a catadioptric is a folded telescope. It uses both lenses and mirrors to make a longer telescope in a compact package. We have examples of all of those to show you. So let me go over a few important things to know. Aperture is the size of the objective lens or mirror, and that determines how much light is gathered. Obviously, the bigger the aperture, the more light it pulls in. Bigger is better, but heavier and also more expensive. Focal length is the distance between the objective and the focus point. In this diagram down here, the focal length is the light cone from the objective, in this case a mirror, to the focal point. And so the longer the focal length, the longer the telescope, but that also determines the magnification. The longer focal length means a higher magnification. It also has to do with something we call the F ratio or F number, and that's the focal length divided by the aperture, and that's the relative brightness of the image. A lower number is called faster, it's brighter. A higher number is slower, it's dimmer. It's just like on your camera, if you have an old camera that has f-stops on it, works the same way. At low f, we need greater optical correction to get all of the different color light rays to come to focus at the same point. So typically low f number telescopes are harder to make and more expensive. So let's look first at a simple refractor. So refractor has a lens in the front called the objective lens. It focuses the light down to a focus somewhere inside the telescope. And the objective focal length is the distance between that objective and the focus point. Now there is an eyepiece at the back end, which I think is my next slide, right? So there's an eye lens or eyepiece that allows you to see a magnified vision or version of the image at the focal plane. And so the light passes into the telescope, comes to a focus, and you look at the focused image. Eyepieces are characterized by focal length. The longer the focal length, the lower the power. So 30 millimeter, for example, is a low power. 15 millimeter is a medium power. 5 millimeter is a higher power. And I think I explained how you get that in the next slide. There we go. Well, let's look at an eyepiece first. So eyepieces usually consist of several lenses like you see in this diagram. And more modern eyepieces have more lenses that make them better by typically making longer eye relief. So eye relief is the distance from the eye lens to the focus point. And the apparent field of view, FOV, is the apparent width. It's like the greater that number, it's like having a bigger window. The power stays the same. So eye relief can be important to you if you wear glasses, for example. You don't want a low eye relief eyepiece and then have to try to look with glasses. And it's nice to have a large field of view eyepiece, but the problem is they can then, for longer focal lengths, the barrel is a problem. So there's more than one type of eyepiece because of that. So the exit pupil is also something we have to think about. That is the diameter of the light cone that comes out of the eyepiece. Your pupil has a diameter when it's fully dilated of about 7 millimeters. If you're older, a little bit less. And so any larger light cone doesn't go in your eye. Some of that light is lost. And so you want to make sure that that's not a problem. For example, binoculars of 7 by 50 are very common. And the reason for that is that 50 millimeter divided by 7, that gives us the exit pupil of 7.1 millimeter. And there are some telescopes that have large aperture that with a long focal length eyepiece will give you a very large light cone, and you're losing some of that. Mostly you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Oh, so the eyepiece determines your magnification. We have the objective focal length. The power is the telescope focal length divided by the eyepiece focal length. And so an example is, I'll show you a 600 millimeter refractor here in a minute. If we use a 25 millimeter eyepiece, that gives you 24 power. 600 divided by 25 is 24. I'll show you another telescope that has a focal length of around 2,000 millimeters. So it has, with that same eyepiece, it has a power of 80 times. So it magnifies by 80 times. Well, that's great. Magnification is, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're going to take a quick view. We're going to see if we can go to the camera. All right, so I was going to show you a refractor telescope. So here is a small refractor. It's 600 millimeters focal length. It has a 85 millimeter, a little bit over 3-inch objective lens. And then out the back, it has a diagonal, which you put your eyepiece in. And the reason for the diagonal is that you can look down into the eyepiece instead of having to get behind the scope looking up at the sky. So typically you put an eyepiece in there. I've got an eyepiece right here. There's our eyepiece. So that is a 30 millimeter eyepiece, and this is 600 millimeters, so that'll be 20 power. It's pretty low power. Okay, so I also wanted to show you some eyepieces, so let me scoot over. Okay, so here's a bunch of eyepieces. Here are some long focal length eyepieces. This one's 42 millimeters focal length, and this one is 27 millimeters. And you'll notice that the diameter of the barrel is 2 inches. These eyepieces over here have a barrel size of 1¼ inch. Both of those are relatively standard. The reason that this one has to have the wide barrel is that it is a wide angle eyepiece. So they've put a bunch of lenses in there to make it so that it sees a wide angle, which means that a small barrel would get in the way. These are shorter focal length eyepieces. This one's 16, this one is 11, this one is 7.5 down there. You'll notice that the smaller the focal length, typically the smaller the eyepiece, but the greater the power. And then I also wanted to show, here are two what are called focal extender or Barlow eyepieces. So these allow you to double, this one doubles your power. It's a 2-time Barlow lens. And so if you stick an eyepiece in it, trust me, it goes in there, stick it in there, now put it in your telescope. It's as if you have, this says 11 millimeters, so it's double the power of the 11 millimeter. This is the same thing, but this is a 2-inch diameter Barlow lens. So those are some of eyepieces that you would have. And typically we have a whole case full of these because we want the long focal length for low power, wide field. We want the short focal length for high power. And we probably have a whole bunch of them, maybe 3 or 4, maybe more. And then we take them out to the field and we look at our different, use them for different things. One of the things that you see on telescope advertisements is wonderful power. This one will give you 500 power. You rarely ever use 500. Couple of things happen. The greater the power, it's like looking through a straw that is increasingly smaller. The greater the power, the smaller the field of view. So this diagram over here shows a telescope with a large field of view, zooming in with a higher power eyepiece. You see there's a bunch of stars here. We're zooming in on those stars right there. This is a telescope with a smaller field of view. So you see more detail, but you also lose some of the picture. So there's a trade-off there. Higher power also increases the F ratio, so the view is dimmer. The higher your power, the less light you're getting in your eye. Also, higher power magnifies bad seeing. What is seeing? That's the wiggling of the atmosphere. If you look at high power, you'll see things vibrating and wiggling unless the air is very steady. Also, power is limited by the aperture, and this is one of the places that the low cost Walmart telescopes, I shouldn't say Walmart, internet telescopes will get you. They might sell you their 500 power, but power is limited by your aperture to 50 power, 50 magnification per inch of aperture. So that 3-inch telescope I showed you is not going to give you any greater than 150 magnification. You can make it go higher, but you're not going to see any more detail. Also, I often find that low power is the most pleasing view because it's the brightest. And usually as you take out your telescope, you point at an object, you go to low power first, so you got a bigger field of view, you find your object, and then you can zoom in. Let me talk a little bit about refractor objectives since we've been talking about refractors. There are many different types, but they all try to take light rays and put them into a compact point. You remember that a prism takes your light rays and breaks them out into a rainbow. That same thing is happening with your objective lens. And so more and more sophisticated lenses have more lenses of different glass types to try to bring the rays together. The cheapest is usually an achromat, which is two lenses. Then a triplet apochromat might have three lenses or more than three lenses. A Petzval apochromat has four lenses. Typically, if you're just doing visual and you're not really picky, your achromat will do okay. And you'll probably be happy, especially with the effect on your wallet. It's going to be a lot cheaper. But if you're into photography and you want nice sharp lenses, you're probably going to get one of these more expensive, more complicated types. Let's look at reflectors now. So the objective now is a curved mirror at the back of the telescope. The light travels down the tube. There's a tube to keep extraneous light out. It focuses a beam up towards the front, and in a Newtonian design, there's a mirror in the middle of the tube that then sends the light beam out the side. So the Newtonian is probably the most common of this type of design. It's popular because it's relatively cheap and not too hard to make. So let's take a look at some reflectors. Amelia's over there. Let's see about getting her set up. Oh, thank you. So Amelia is showing two types of Dobsonian reflector over there. So that's a 6-inch reflector right there. That means that the mirror in the back is 6 inches. And then to the other side is a 10-inch that has a 10-inch mirror. And you can see there's the spider that holds the mirror, secondary mirror. So the light goes into the mirror, bounces off this mirror and comes out the eyepiece over there. The same thing for this one. These Dobsonian telescopes are really common nowadays because it's basically a very simple alt-azimuth mount, turns on a lazy Susan and goes up and down on bearings that are relatively cheap and easy to make. And so they're really common. In the old days, they would be on a different type of mount that was more expensive. Let's see. Oh, one thing that we didn't mention was on the telescope is let's look at this from the side. Notice the finders on this one. Let me move the camera and zoom in. So this telescope has two different finders on it. Got it in the middle, Joe? Okay, here we go. This one's a little telescope, and it's like a rifle finder. It has a reticle. It's a little telescope with a reticle that has a crosshairs, and you line it up on the object, and you make sure that the telescope is lined up with your big telescope. Down here is a zero power finder. It's basically a little projector that projects an image of a reticle on a piece of glass. And so you look through it up at the sky and you see this dot on the sky, and you can put your telescope on the object that way. This is zero power, so you don't get any help with magnification. The finder scope is typically 6 power, 8 power, something like that. So you get a little bit more magnification. That'll help you find your object. Okay, thanks, Joe. Let's go back to share. Back to there. Okay, so let me talk now about folded reflectors, catadioptic telescopes. This is a design that uses a combination of mirrors and lenses to create a long focal length scope with a compact physical length. There's a main mirror in the back, and it has a hole in the middle. And it bounces a light towards the front where there's a secondary mirror that then sends the light back out, typically out the back end. And so uh, the reason for this, that this is very popular, is that you have a telescope that may be 2 or 3 times this length in a very compact size. There are several types. Okay, there we go. There are three main types there are many types, but there are three main ones that I want to talk about. There's a Cassegrain. The Cassegrain has a primary mirror at the back uh, with a hole in the middle, has a secondary mirror at the front, but it has no lens or other optics at the front. So the light merely goes in, bounces off the primary mirror to the secondary mirror, out through a light baffle to the eyepiece. Um, the Schmidt-Cassegrain is a very common telescope, and it's similar, except it has a corrector lens at the front. And that corrector lens does a couple of things. For one thing, it makes the tube a sealed tube so that you don't get dust in it, but it also gives you a little bit of correction and a little bit longer telescope in a more compact length. So this is one of the most popular types of CATs. And the third type is a Maxutov. So Maxutov is similar to the others, primary mirror in the back. It has a meniscus corrector lens at the front that makes it a longer telescope. And it has a secondary mirror often on the back of that meniscus lens that focuses in the back. And Maxitovs are typically long focal length, high F number, and they're really good for planets, for example. So let's take a look at some cats. Okay, looks like Steve. Yep, there's Steve that's a Cassegrain telescope that Steve's got, and you can see there's a secondary mirror in the front with spider veins holding it up. You can probably see you can see the mirror in the back there. And then if we twist it that way, you can see the focuser mechanism and the eyepiece in the back. And I guess that, and finder scope on the top. So let's see. So we wanted to also show a Schmidt-Cassegrain. Okay, Joe, now we're going to pull over here to these small scopes. Oh, so we kind of forgot about that one. That is a small tabletop reflector. Say it's good for kids, but you have to have a table in order to use it. Here is a small Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope, and you see there's a corrector lens on the front. There's no spider vein holding up the secondary. Its secondary is held in place by the corrector lens. The light goes into the primary mirror, bounces off the secondary, and then comes out the back where the eyepiece would be placed. And the final type is the Maxutov over here. So there's a little Mac. And you can see there's a meniscus lens on the front, and this one has a silvered spot on the back of the meniscus lens that is the secondary mirror. So light comes in, bounces off the primary mirror, goes to the secondary, and comes out the back. Okay, so those are our cats. Next, I'd like to address telescope mounts. So we have several types of telescope mounts here. There are two main types that I want to talk about. One is called an altitude azimuth or alt-az mount, and it swings around in the horizontal plane, that's in azimuth, and then the telescope tilts, that's in altitude. It's simple and intuitive. The other type is an equatorial mount. It also has two perpendicular axes. We align one of those axes with the north celestial pole, so the telescope can rotate around that axis to follow the stars. And then it has a second axis, the declination axis, that turns it 90 degrees to go sideways one way or the other. Typically, this type of mount is used for people who want to track the stars. This type of mount is usually looked for people who just want to have a look at the stars and don't care about the fact that it doesn't track as well. Also, a quick word about mounts. An inferior mount makes an inferior experience. That's one of the big problems with the mass market telescopes, is that many of them have poor mounts. And your mount is as important as your scope and probably even more. So use a mount that has a capacity that's well above your scope weight. And you see a lot of mass market telescopes with camera tripods, and they're not made for telescopes. They're made to hold a camera in a fixed position, and they don't usually move very smoothly. And often the mounts that you see are wobbly and undersized. So you want to make sure you have a nice, robust mount. So this picture is of a cat. That's a Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. It's in an ALTAS with mounts called a fork mount because it has bearings on the sides. It swivels in the horizontal dimension there. So it rotates in elevation, altitude, and also in azimuth. It's simple, intuitive, and one of the problems with this type of mount is that the star field rotates. If you look at the moon on one horizon and then stay up all night and see it on the other horizon, it will have changed its orientation. Computerized ALTAS mounts can track objects, but you still have the field rotation. This is a very popular type of telescope. It's a small SCT, Schmidt-Cassegrain, on an ALTAS computerized mount. They're great because you can set them on a star, they will track. It's just that if you're an astrophotographer, you probably want to get an equatorial mount, which I just skipped over. Equatorial mount is the best for tracking. As I said, you line up the right ascension axis, one axis, with the Earth's rotation axis by pointing it at the North Celestial Pole, which is near the North Star in the Northern Hemisphere. And then it has a second axis called declination to allow you to go side to side. This is preferred by astrophotographers because it creates a stable image. It doesn't rotate, but it requires the user to align it with the pole. So if you go out and you see people using these telescopes, the first thing they do when they can see Polaris is they align up their mount so it can do its thing. And here's a couple of equatorial mount examples. Here's what looks like a Cassegrain. It looks very much like the one that Steve was showing you. This is an old non-computerized mount, but also has motors. Here's one that has a computerized mount. That computerized means that it has a little hand computer that will allow you to find stars and other objects. So you can get a computerized mount. It's actually hard to find the non-computerized mounts because they're so popular. They will allow you to set up your scope to align it with the stars and then use a hand control. Usually your computer is in here and it has a database of objects. You say, I want to see M42, for example, and it will go over and find M42. But non-motorized, non-computerized mounts you can typically get for under 500. But if you had a computerized mount, it's going to probably set you back over $1,000. But it depends on how much work you're willing to do. All right, so now let's take a look at some mounts. So this is a German equatorial mount that Steve was showing you a moment ago. It has the two axes. This is the right ascension axis here. So the telescope, we align this up. There's actually a little telescope inside here that allows you to line it up on the North Celestial Pole. And then this motor drives it in right ascension, which should follow the stars. But we might want to go find a star that's somewhere in another part of the sky. So there is the declination axis. And one thing about this type of mount is that we need to balance it. So you'll notice that I turned it horizontal and the telescope didn't run away. It has these counterweights over here that balance the weight of the telescope too. You want to keep it so that it doesn't fall one side or the other. So typically the German equatorial mount has counterweights on it. So you got to carry counterweights. You got to line it up with the North Star. So now let's look at, here is a computerized alt-azimuth mount. Let me put a telescope in it. This one also has a counterweight, but it's not, it depends on the design. So this one just turns in azimuth, and it also turns in altitude. And here's the little computer. And we can't align it in here because it can't get GPS. Well, actually, it does have GPS. That's a surprise. But we can't see any stars to align it. But if we wanted to make it go somewhere, we can make coffee grinder noises and move the telescope around. And if I don't want to make it go to a star right now because it's not lined up and it might not, the results might not be good. All right, so that one is a computerized mount. I use that one for star parties a lot because because the tracking allows me to just put it on a star and then it's good to go. And I don't have to nudge the telescope every 30 seconds for people to look through it. This is a alt-azimuth mount also, but you can see it has no motors on it. Let me put the telescope over. Okay. Well, I've got a problem because it's the opposite side. That won't hurt. Let me see if that will hold. Yeah, okay. So it can go azimuth, it can go altitude. Scope is upside down. This one also has slow motion controls, which are very useful. So I can turn that knob and make the telescope move. Really useful if you want to go look at something and then keep moving the telescope. Okay. So those are the basic mounts. Those are our, well, I guess let's look at the Dobsonian again, because that's a nice design. So this is a Dobsonian telescope, and it's really quite simple. It's an alt-azimuth mount, so there's a bearing in the base that allows it to turn side to side. It's actually, many of these are built on a Lazy Susan, and then it has a bearing that allows the telescope to go up and down. There are different types. The original Dobsonian just has a semicircle with Teflon pads that allow it to slide, but not too fast. And so that makes a nice, simple, easy to maintain, easy to build and cheap mount. All right, so a few things, other things I wanted to tell you about telescopes. If you look through a telescope, you're going to go, why is my field of view upside down? This is what you get with binoculars. Everything is right side up. But if you look through a refractor telescope, you're going to get an inverted and flipped image like that. In some telescopes, it might be in the on a vertical axis, but not a horizontal axis. What's happening is that, if you remember the diagram of the light beams, the light path crosses inside the telescope, so it's upside down. And if you put a mirror, that flips it also side to side. Normal orientation, we can get that with binoculars, but you have to have extra lenses, which are more expensive and also make it a little bit more light loss. So most astronomers just don't care. But if you ever look at the moon in a telescope and you go, it's backwards, it probably is. Another thing I wanted to mention is uh, solar viewing can be a lot of fun in white light. You can see sunspots, certainly sometimes spicules and facula, which are details on the chromosphere. And it can be fun to watch the sunspots drift across the face of the sun. But I'm sure you all know this. Never, 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 ever, 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 ever look through the sun without a good solar filter. And this includes finder scopes. Here's a telescope with an objective lens filter. It reduces the intensity of the sun's rays by tens of thousands of times so that when you look through the telescope, you don't hurt your eye. Another way to do it is to just use your telescope as a projector and you put a screen behind it and project the image of the sun. Another thing is, this is what, if you go look at a telescope online, it's probably going to show you this. Are you going to see this? No, you're not. The human eye is a very poor photon receptor, and its color is quite difficult to see at night in low light levels. And so this is a time exposure photograph of the Orion Nebula M42. This is what you'll see through a telescope. This is a sketch that someone made from a small telescope of the Orion Nebula. But even though you're not going to see that, when you see this, that light's been traveling for thousands, if not millions of years to reach your eyeball. And so the challenge is to see what you can see. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about telescopes for Christmas. Like I said, this is when the bad telescopes come out. So I want to get, insert name here, a telescope for Christmas. Which one? I think one of the first things you have to decide is, does insert name here really love astronomy? If not, that telescope might gather dust. So one thing I would suggest, we have a loaner program in the club. So you can check out a telescope. Steve, come over here and tell us about the loaner program. Steve I think, has the actual telescopes, don't you, Steve?
Okay. There are these two scopes here are from the loaner program.
Let me get them on camera. Okay, Steve, you're on.
Okay, so this is one that's in the loaner program. It's a 6-inch, a 5-inch, something like that.
6-inch, yeah.
6-inch. And the program has it so you can borrow it for 2 months. And if nobody wants it after that, you can keep it for longer.
So how does the program work?
So you tell me
Right.
that you want to borrow a loaner program, a loaner scope, and we'll see what's available and we'll talk about it, whether it's a 6-inch or a 10-inch. How big is your car?
Right.
Is one thing to consider. How strong are you? You know, typically if it's for a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, you don't want to do this one, but maybe something like this. You have to consider the age of the person.
Yes. So Steve, when I was a kid, this is the telescope I got. Not, it wasn't a Dobsonian, it was on a German equatorial mount, but it was a 6-inch reflector that got me started at age 10. And this is a great type of telescope if you want to show a kid a telescope.
Exactly. We've had kids come in, 6, 7 years old. So we show them how to use a Telrad. A little while later, he's showing somebody else how to use a Telrad.
4 years.
4 years old on that one. Yeah. So, you know, we have to consider the age of the person, the strength, the parents' car capacity, you know.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a great idea. If you want to try a telescope out, use our loaner scopes.
Exactly.
And then you'll have a much better idea of whether it's one that you want to buy or not. Okay, so that's a loaner program. Another thing is, no telescope works very well in the middle of Houston. I know, I live there. I can see maybe 3 stars on a good night. You really need to get out where you can see the stars, and we have a dark site. Takes a little bit of traveling to get there, but it's a pretty good sky. You can definitely see the Milky Way and lots of other things. So that's a perk of being a member of the Astronomy Society. So it takes a little while to get there, but it's worth going out there. So I found this somewhere online. Don't buy one of these telescopes. So this is from the interweb. You notice they all have a cell phone attached to them, right? As if that's the be all and end all. These are all, they all have rickety looking little mounts. Some of them are little camera tripods. They're all very short focal length, which means you're not going to be able to get much magnification out of them. The aperture is small in all of them, and most of them have a lot of plastic pieces. Most good telescopes don't have plastic pieces, and it's hard to tell about those eyepieces, but I guess they follow suit. Cheap telescopes, the manufacturer has to figure out some way to make them cheap. So look for quality manufacturers. Some of the ones you might look for is Celestron or Meade, although it's been bought out, but I think you can still find them around. Skywatcher, Explorer Scientific. There's some good places to look. High Point Scientific, Astronomics, Agena Astro, Anacortes. We actually have a really good telescope shop in town called Land, Sea, and Sky. It's over here on Richmond, near Shepherd. And unfortunately, they had cheap telescopes, but they decided they weren't making enough money, so they've now gone to high-end telescopes. But they've got good telescopes there, and they're helpful if you want to go talk to them. You can also find used equipment sites, Astromart and cloudynights.com. But you need to know what you're getting, right? That's if you're going to do that, go that route. Talk to a club member who has experience and ask them to help you out. So here's some scope ideas. Boy, that sure looks like the one we were just looking at. In fact, it is. That's the 6-inch Dobsonian reflector. Typically, you get this one for about $500, a little bit more. Comes with one eyepiece, one or two eyepieces. This is relatively well constructed and decent quality. The only downside is that this is not completely non-computerized. Your your kid is going to have to figure out where to point it. Now, that's actually not a bad thing. If you start to learn the sky, if you have that passion, then it will carry you through. Here's another starter scope. It's a little refractor that I saw online. This one is, I forget what the manufacturer is. It's not a bad manufacturer. That's not a bad looking little starter German equatorial mount. Um, it's 1,000 millimeter focal length. The price is under 300. Comes with one eyepiece. You're probably going to get more. The downside is it only has a red dot finder, a zero power finder. So that's going to be it's going to be hard to find things. And it has what it calls a draw tube focuser. I'm not even sure what that is, but this picture actually has knobs. Okay. So a draw tube, I think you pull on it and it comes in and out. So I'm not sure what the difference with the picture is. That I was going by the product specs there. Here's another interesting idea that Celestron has put out, this star sense scopes. They're typically 80 to 100 millimeter refractors, 114 to 130 millimeter reflector on Altaz mounts, and they incorporate an app on a smartphone, and the smartphone takes a picture and figures out where it is, and then from there on you tell it to find an object, and it tells you where to turn the telescope. Now the only downside is I've seen these. The mounts are a little sketchy. They're used too much plastic for my taste. But if you're getting started, it might not be a bad way to go. If you want to get a computerized telescope, this is probably this is the place where many people come in. This is probably the most popular telescope ever made in the world. It's a Nexstar 8, so it's an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope on a single side alt-azimuth mount. It's got a decent tripod. It's a pretty good little scope. You can see the price there is about 1,700. You can get a little bit smaller one. Here's a 6-inch, drops down to about 1,200. Here's a 4-inch, but now when you get down to that size, you really don't have much aperture. But you got a computerized telescope. But you can see the cheapest one here is almost $800. So some final thoughts. There's no perfect telescope. That's why you need to have 10 of them. They're like golf clubs. You use a given telescope for, one is like a pitching wedge, another one is like a driver. The best telescope is the one you actually use. So I think that's a good reason to check out the loaner program and to talk to members who know about telescopes. Next time we do this, we'll try to do it in person, and I guarantee we'll have a whole bunch of people who'd love to talk about telescopes. So also go out to the dark site and look at the other telescopes that are out there. I've never had anybody tell me to go away and leave me alone. All right, so that's our presentation. Let me get back to where you can see us, see me. Any questions, folks?
Yeah, so this is Chris. Excellent work. Really appreciate the effort that you guys put into the presentation.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I'm looking at the chat right now, and let me just go through these. I'll look for questions. Um, Here's one. What about smart telescopes that can be used in Houston? So like the Sea Star. What are your thoughts on that, Will and company?
I'm gonna get an expert to come in here, Joe.
Yeah, just my opinions on those. They're great for astrophotography. Obviously, the Sea Star is a scope designed for astrophotography, right? So you're not going to be using it for any visual applications, but they're great, right? It gives you an opportunity to collect data, see things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see here within the Houston city limits. But certainly the application for
Can
that.
you use them in the middle of the city?
You can, and I've
Okay.
taken some decent photos actually. So I live not too far from you,
Mhm.
2 miles from downtown Houston, and I've been able to take some really, really nice photos from Houston. Now,
Awesome.
the difference is if I take photos from Houston, the amount of time I need to expose that image is much longer than say if I go out to Fort Davis or something like that, or even at the dark site. So certainly the light pollution, the light dome affects what we are able to do. But yeah, you can take some really, really nice images from the heart of Houston with that.
And what's the starting level? The Sea Star, like there's a C30 now?
There's a Sea Star S30 with
Yeah.
30 millimeter objective lens, and then the Sea Star, the first one that came out was the Sea Star S50 with a 50 millimeter objective lens. I don't know the prices offhand, but relatively speaking, they're fairly inexpensive. For what you get. I want to say the Sea Star S50 is about $550.
Yes, correct.
30 is about $400 if I'm not mistaken, $399.
That I don't know. The 50 though is 450, 500 if memory
Right,
serves me right.
right.
Yep.
But they do well within the city limits. But again, it's astrophotography, not so much visual, which is what I like to do with many of these telescopes.
But
Got it.
to me,
Okay, I'm
that
sorry.
is the biggest growing part of amateur astronomy
Agreed.
right now, because now there is all of a sudden eight different kinds, from the Sea Star, which was the starter unit,
Right.
which does really nice. Now they're getting up there. It's basically a Celestron. It's called a RASA with like a 6-inch. It's not cheap, but it looks really nice.
Takes really
Yeah.
nice photos. It's got a pretty advanced camera that's attached to it. But again, you pay for that, right? So you can run the gamut in terms of the price ranges as well as the capabilities and quality.
And so that would be a great subject for another novice presentation. There's a SIG group that the
Yes.
Smart Telescope SIG group that you can get in on, but we ought to do one of these presentations with that.
Absolutely.
Yes, and well, you walked right. Great intro for me, Will. The December novice topic will be on astrophotography, getting started, and we're going to cover a wide spectrum of cameras and telescopes, etc. The Sea Star and the Dwarf 2 or Dwarf 2 will be featured. We have members that have that, and we're going to be presenting what their equipment looks like, as well as some pictures that they've taken. And then we have other more sophisticated, less sophisticated, going to do night photography. So, good plug for next month, because that's what we're going to be covering in depth.
Yeah. And Chris, I might add, we recently acquired a Sea Star S30 for the loaner program.
Yeah.
That's going to be available for members as well.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So Mike Nelson, did that answer your question about smart telescopes?
Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to listening to next month's meeting.
Perfect. Vic had a question. He asked, is Black Friday a good opportunity to pick up a good telescope at a good price?
Uh, Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I am I'm reluctant to recommend any telescope that would be sold, as a cheap telescope, right? And maybe you can do that. I don't know the sales. Typically, you have to look at like Celestron's website. There are a couple other websites.
Yeah, what I will say in talking to some of the folks at Land, Sea, and Sky, to get a good telescope, very often the manufacturers won't let you discount them below a certain price. And so, the price difference, yeah, it might be a little bit for Black Friday, but typically you're not going to get one of those brands that Will had mentioned, the good higher end brands at a good price during those times. Now you'll find lots of the cheaper telescopes that you want to avoid, but certainly not the kind that you're going to grow with.
Gotcha. Okay, Glenn Lubines, you posted a lengthy post. I was looking for a question, but I didn't see one. Would you like to come off mute and ask a question?
Sorry here. My main computer is not working well, so I'm dealing with a new computer.
Okay.
But no, mostly it's not a question. It's just comments that I was thinking about as the talk was starting. That I will
Okay.
ask Santa for a telescope that has optics without chromatic aberration, a sturdy but lightweight equatorial mount, et cetera, et cetera. And the last three items, that it never needs cleaning or maintenance, that it can see through thick clouds and or walls, and oh, by the way, is inexpensive.
Yeah, that's a tough
Good,
bill for
good luck with
Santa.
that. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let us know how that turns out for you.
I'm worried that if I tell you all, you'll all be banging on my door.
Okay. All right, real good. So
Thanks for the presentation.
You're
thank,
welcome. Thanks for
thank,
coming.
thank you. Let's see, Alexander Gaudreau, I probably didn't pronounce that right. He says, great presentation. What charts do you recommend for using to find stars and planets in the sky?
Great question, and something I forgot to put in there. Uh, so I'm an old man, so I am pre-digital, but I also am digital. So I have a really good a really good star map is Sky and Telescope. They make a pocket atlas, but they make a large
Jumbo
a
pocket.
jumbo pocket atlas. That's my one I carry. But I also, Joe, you're going to show me one?
So I use Sky Safari. I don't know if you can
Yeah.
see it here.
I also have Sky Safari, and it's a little planetarium program that runs on your on your smartphone. This is more for amateurs that kind of know what they're doing.
Right.
You can get some other apps that are a little bit aimed at a more introductory level. I have one that I use. I can just point it at the sky and, okay, it tells me what I'm looking at, right?
That's right.
A lot of times I go, oh, wait, what's that star again? And I could look up and I can see it. Sky Safari is a great one though.
Sky Safari is a good one. What you'll find when you start off is you'll have planetarium software like Sky Safari, and then you also have planning software like Sky Tools. They do two completely different things, and it's really a topic for another conversation. But what you'll find is that for many of the computerized mount telescopes, these apps can connect to the mounts nowadays, especially the newer mounts, and you can do the go-to from the software itself as opposed to a keypad or some other device.
Yeah, one other thing that comes up along with that is how are you going to see it? So with your book, you want to have a red flashlight because if you turn on a white light at the dark side, people are going to yell at you, even as nice as the astronomers are, because white light destroys your night vision. Red light doesn't. So I have various flashlights and the but even with a computer, you can't use a computer screen at night. So you need to have I have a red filter that I put over mine so that I can see it at night.
All right, great. Alexander, did that answer your question? Are you there?
I see he says yes in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Chris, the
And
other thing I wanted to mention was
yes,
several folks I know who've been at this for a while will actually have different catalogs that they use depending on what telescope they're using. So some of the catalogs really are designed for smaller telescopes and don't go too deep into the sky, whereas others will get down to magnitude 16 or so, so that you can really locate the deeper objects in the sky and use your telescope to find those.
gotcha. Next question, Mark Stevens asks, would a refractor telescope be a good choice for a beginner?
So there's no right answer for that. Yes, it would be, but the thing that you have to remember is that so it used to be that refractor telescopes were long, so-called yard cannon. So this one, nowadays, a lot of them are short focal length. This one's only f7, but it's only 600 millimeters focal length. So the amount of power that you can get out of it is limited. You'd have to put it at Barlow and go with a very short focal length eyepiece, and with the size, you just remember that you can't go more than 50 power per inch of objective. They're great. I would go with a long focal length achromat, but it does have that problem that the amount of power you can get out of it is limited. Also, mirrors are cheaper, so you get a bigger aperture for the same amount of dollars. So that this is not a good example because this is a premium telescope, but you can get one like this that's a Chinese, actually an apochromat. So it's a doublet for maybe $300 or $400. You can get maybe a 4 inch instead of this is 3 inch for more than that, 500 or 600, something like that. That Dobsonian that we showed you, that's 6 inches, and that cost about 500. You can get an 8 inch for maybe about 700 or 800, something like that. So you can typically get more aperture, but also the bigger it is, the more hassle it is to move it around, right? So you also have to think about it's going to have to live somewhere and it's going to have to come out of the closet. So that's especially hard with kids and newbies is you got to get over that inertia hump. Going to take it out and we're going to go see something.
Yes, and that kind of leads into this next question from Robert Gadrew. I bet he's related to Alexander. He asks, would you recommend an 8-inch Dobsonian as a good starter telescope? I think yes. So I would like to chime in here, if I may. I borrowed from a loaner program a 6-inch Dobbs and a 10-inch Dobbs, and they're wonderful telescopes, but getting to be an old man here, and I just got to the point where moving them around was, I just didn't, I dreaded the thought. So, depending on where you are in life and physically and mentally, 8-inch could be great. Or if you're like me, an 8-inch could be like, man, when can I give this back? So,
So that's a good reason to try it out. You're quite right. That six
exactly.
inch that we brought in here, uh, it is the mount weighs maybe 20 pounds and the tube is probably 15 pounds. I mean, together it's probably not more than 45 pounds or something like that. And you wouldn't move it. Well, you might move it together, but so it's doable, but it is, it is a chunk. 8 inch is going to be a little bit more. You just have to move it. And people who have bigger Dobbs, they put wheels on them and wheel them around.
Right. And so, Robert, did that answer your question? Did you have any other
Yeah,
questions?
yeah. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for answering the question. I'm kind of a newbie in astronomy. That's why I kind of joined, and me and my brother, and yes, we're related.
All
We
right.
moved to Houston recently, so we're trying to get more interested into some astronomy. So I
So
appreciate you guys giving us the rundown on different types of telescopes, and that's why I was looking to an 8-inch
yeah, so welcome to
Dobsonian.
the club. And this is a great club because there are 500 members or more, something like that. And there's so many experts and there are many telescopes and everybody's really friendly. So just go talk to people. try them out. Try some from the Lunar program. Go out to the dark side and talk to people out there. See what they got.
Beach events too.
And
Excellent.
outreach events
Thank
too. Oh, that's right. We often have outreach events where we bring out telescopes to one of the parks and show people. And yeah, I know Joe, I've often met Joe downtown here where you can see maybe one or two more stars. Uh, it's good when you have the moon, but people love it and just go see telescopes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. So I've got some more comments. Let me see if I got another question. I think. Oh, and then Heather recommends that you all join the Discord server community, and there's a lot of discussion that takes place in there. So that's another great resource. I do have a question, if I may, Will. I've seen Schmidt-Cassegrain telescopes where you focus by moving the back mirror, and then I've seen other arrangements where you're actually moving an eyepiece in and out. Could you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Yeah, that's the Celestron design. I think the Meade does the same thing. They actually they actually move the mirror. It seems I'm not sure why they designed it that way, but it works. But a lot of advanced amateurs will swap it out and put a focuser on the back. So most of your telescopes, like the ones we showed you, have a focuser where you turn a knob and it moves the eyepiece. That's
Okay.
kind of standard. That's the usual way of doing it. But some Schmidt-Cassegrains have actually move the mirror. And
Okay.
That one there has the mirror.
yeah,
And you just lock the mirrors and then put that
no,
assembly in where you can,
I've never taken it apart to see what it looks like in there, but it just stays.
yeah, okay. Excellent. Okay, well, listen, I'll just open up the floor to anybody else that has a question. If you would, just come off of mute and answer your question or ask your question. I do have some wrap-up slides here, so but we'll keep asking questions, and then when we're finished, I'll go through the wrap-up slides. So, anybody that's got a question, I'll do my auctioneer. Oh, I
This
heard.
is Robert again.
Yes.
Is there a link for the Discord on the website, or do you have to email it?
That's a good question. Heather, do you know more? Know more about that than I do.
Chris, yeah, because I administer it. So just send an email to info@astronomyhouston.org. And what we'll do, because we get these emails all the time, we'll just verify your membership. And then once we know that you're a member, we'll send you an invitation link.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Anybody else?
I wanted to know whether the dark side is always accessible.
Yeah, dark side is pretty much open 24/7, 365 days a year.
Right.
As long as you're a member in good standing and you've gone through the dark side orientation, you, your friends, your family have access to it. The only thing that we ask is if you do bring guests, that they know what some of the rules are, obviously with light trespass, white light, usage, red light usage, things like that. So, it's kind of your responsibility to make sure your guests are aware of those rules, but there's no limitation as to how often you can come and what days you can come.
Right. Doesn't close for Christmas or New Year's or
Doesn't close
anything.
for Christmas. I don't know. I mean, Steve and Amelia probably have been there more than anybody else in club's history. I'm sure there have been people there Christmas Day. If it's a good enough night, I'm sure you're going to find somebody there. Yeah.
All right. We got a question in the chat from somebody with the initials MAL, and she asks, what brand mount is in front of Amelia?
What brand? This one here? Yeah.
Yes, I'm assuming so.
Yeah, that's an iOptron. I don't think they make that anymore. That's a mini tower. They make, but if you look up, it's called little I with capital OPTRON, iOptron. They make a lot of mounts. I think they have a inexpensive version of that you can get.
Yep. Okay. And oh, smart Martial. I can't. I'm terrible with names, so if I butcher your name, I apologize in advance. She said thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, listen, we're going to close the floor to questions. And again, I want to thank you for putting on a wonderful presentation tonight. A lot of great information, much appreciated by the club here. So thank you.
Thank you to everyone for coming, and thanks to Joe and Steve and Amelia.
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and share just a few wrap-up slides, Will. So let me try that. And can you see my screen?
I can?
Okay, so let me go to.
Well, that's right, I'm the host.
Okay, so I assume everybody can see my screen. Is that correct? Bill Spizzeri, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right, excellent. Okay, so here's Will. And here's just a few announcements. So, Novice Labs, I am soliciting participants in Novice for the Novice Lab, and we're going to be holding a series of these between now and March. We get some, this is really the best time of the year to hold these, in my opinion. What we do at a Novice Lab is we will walk through and have a tour of the night sky. We'll practice, we'll use our signposts and things like that that we talk about quarterly in the novice meetings. We'll practice finding featured objects. I'll come out with a list and we can wing it from there. And then, of course, we just want to have fun. We're going to go do these at the dark site, so you will need to be dark site qualified. And what you'll want to do, I did send out an email, and I do have a class lined up for a week from Saturday, weather permitting. So that's going to go, but I'm going to be holding these as needed from now until November or until March, excuse me. So if you are interested, just shoot me an email at cmorissette@yahoo.com, or probably a better email address would be Chris M at astronomyhouston.org, and let me know if you're interested, and then I'll get back to you with the information that we'll need in order to get you signed up. So look for that. I'll send out another mailer probably in the next few weeks, as well as get it posted on Discord. So look for that. They're a lot of fun, and if you're brand new to astronomy, it's a great way to find to get help from others that are more experienced on how to really get out there and start using our signposts to find objects in the night sky. We have special interest groups that will be meeting in November. So the Visual SIG special interest will be meeting next Wednesday at 7:30. The Smart Telescope SIG will be meeting on the 19th at 7:30. And then Matt and I talked earlier, the Astrophotography SIG is looking to reschedule theirs since they're going to be very close to Thanksgiving. So
Oh yeah, so
yeah,
so
sorry.
Chris, yes, just a little bit of comment on that. So it is originally scheduled for the 26th, which turns out to be the evening before Thanksgiving.
Right.
So I've launched a small poll in our Discord. So if you go to the APSIG Discord channel, then you can vote if you would like to have it to be scheduled, and then we have some options there. So looking for your feedback, and then once we have chosen a new date, which will be in 2 days from now maximum, then we will announce that through email, Facebook, all the channels that you're used to.
Perfect. All right, real good. So look for that. And then remember, tomorrow night we have a general meeting, and it's going to be entitled A Little Bit of Everything in the Universe and a Little Bit of Stellophane. And that's presented by our very own Larry Mitchell. Be advised that we are meeting in person tomorrow night for the first time in really, I think, since 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So this is kind of a momentous occasion. The details on the location are on the HAS website. So I would encourage you to go there. It's at the Houston Community, Houston HCC, I think is, help me with that. Is that Houston Community College? It's
Houston City College now.
Houston City College, and that will be at the downtown campus. But again, all of the details are on the website. So rather than try to arm wave you through that, I would just go there. And with that, I think we are finished for the evening. So again, everybody, thanks for coming. And unfortunately, I won't be there tomorrow night, but hopefully everybody, many will show up and you'll have a chance to meet everybody face to face. So again, thanks guys for the presentation, and thank you everyone for dialing in tonight. Really appreciate it.